Well, I mean, going back to one of your initial questions about knowledge and identity related to environmental sound. It's something we don't really have a handle on. We don't really understand how it works because it has barely been studied. In the UK, there's been a handful of soundscape studies looking at the sonic environment and how it relates to the people who live there and create those sounds and work with those sounds. But from that one small project I did over several years, I was aware that the sonic environment is changing very rapidly, very quickly. It might have been quite static. Well, when I say static, apart from kind of regional change, etc., there's very little change. But then suddenly there's been a rapid change. But yet nobody's thinking about it or studying it. Although on an individual level, people are aware of the change. And there's also kind of nostalgic discourse about the sounds from one's childhood and so on. So there are other kind of questions of heritage. I mean, I guess that's what you were getting at, kind of issues of heritage, of preservation and so on. But that's kind of two-sided, and historically there's always been a problem with acoustic ecology, which has been bound up with preservation, and then questioning, well, what sounds do you preserve? And Murray Schafer's own work looks back to a notion at a time when we once lived in a balanced soundscape, which, well, we imagine was before the Industrial Revolution. But that notion of balanced soundscape is a very difficult one, and it's hard to really know what that means and what to return to or what to head towards. And I think and I was thinking that today more and more that it is an ideological question about what our soundscape should be, what we should be doing then. I mean, we can study it and we can learn from it, but then, well, what then do we head towards? How then do we design the soundscape? Is it and the danger is, that's one of the issues I was bringing up, one of my questions, is that the more and more the kind of privatization of especially urban cities, urban contexts, such a place like Hong Kong, you're often walking through a shopping centre. A lot of Hong Kong is a shopping centre, and many different kinds of music and sound design is getting projected towards you with a very, very precise role, which is encouraging you to spend money on very expensive, high-class goods. So then, well, what is our place then? What do we do about that? So what should be? I mean, so there's one kind of, that's a capitalist agenda. That's one thing that becomes kind of more and more overriding. Or is it a situationist one, which is the kind of another discourse that we're trying to create or is it a kind of socialist one? Or is it, really? I think we have to really think about, well, what do we want? What's our goal then? Especially when we learn more and more about the design of the soundscape and how it influences us psychologically, subliminally, and so on. Well, then what is our goal? What do we want? And a lot of the projects I've been doing, especially in the UK, have been about, well, I quite like doing field recording in the UK because we immediately imagine that Britain is not very interesting, it's not very exotic. And currently there's many British sound artists who are going to the Antarctic or going to, amazing places. But I think there's many, many amazing places you can go to in the UK which are very surprising and subtle. But that might mean going to, one of my projects recently was on Goodwin Sands, which is a tidal sandbank 10 miles out from the coast, and you can only get there maybe once a month when the tides are low enough. So there's a bit of land which is very ephemeral. It's a very special place to get to. Very, very unique, very special. So there are these amazing sites within the UK, and I can think of many other examples which are especially to do with birdsong, or which can become very seasonal. But I'm also really interested in this notion of the everyday. That's why a lot of my work, such as doing a sound piece about the city of Exeter, which it could be any city, but I love taking a microphone for a walk and picking up the sound of the interest in the pattern of footsteps, or the sound of people vacuuming a carpet, or I don't know, it could be many things, or the sound of somebody pushing a pram which has a squeaky wheel, or often in reverberant environments you see children shouting and enjoying the sound, playing with the reverberation of the space. All these kind of very everyday things about how people are using sound, practicing sound, maybe without any great thought behind it, but actually they are, really actually there's something quite cultural and social about how people are using sound, which I think is completely fascinating, and there's lots to learn from that. And it's really nice to share that, But one of the things I do beyond electroacoustic composition is sound walks, so just going for a walk to listen and leading people for a walk to listen, where people don't talk and they're just walking and listening. And people, every time I do it, I'm always a bit worried, thinking, is it enough? As a composer, I think, is this enough, just going for a walk? But every time, the people I take for these walks, they are transformed by the experience. Sometimes negatively, they think, oh gosh, now I'm listening and it's so noisy, it's so loud, and I can't filter it. So it's not always positive. But sometimes other people might focus, gosh, it's so nuanced and subtle, and all these, gosh, there's so much to listen to. To be a really fascinating process. So it's a kind of pedagogic one about encouraging people to listen, but it's also a kind of sociological one about learning and sharing how people are using sound, interesting patterns and finding these patterns. They're very, very interesting.